Welcome to the Ohio State Legal Services Association's Family Law Video Project. This video was made possible through the generous support of the Ohio Legal Assistance Foundation, and the content was created by Southeastern Ohio Legal Services and the Legal Aid Society of Columbus. The video you are about to watch will guide you through some of the forms that you will need to file in Ohio courts when you want a divorce or you need to respond to a divorce your husband or wife filed. The information we provide is not legal advice and does not create a lawyer-client relationship with you. We cannot guarantee any specific outcome in your case, and we are not responsible for any errors on your form. You should hire a lawyer if you can afford one, especially if your divorce case is complicated. This may mean that you and your spouse do not agree on custody of your children, you own real estate, you have a lot of property to divide, you or your spouse have retirement accounts, your spouse hired a lawyer, or if one spouse has a much higher income than the other spouse. If you need a lawyer or specific advice about your case, you have several options. If you are low income, you can contact your local legal aid program. If you need information about which legal aid covers your community, call the following number. Many communities also have pro bono clinics where low-income people can talk to a volunteer lawyer. Your local legal aid program will have a list of clinics near you. Finally, if you can afford a lawyer, you should reach out to your local bar association for a lawyer referral. The forms you will be completing can all be found online on the Ohio Supreme Court website here. The forms available online may be completed in Microsoft Word or PDF form on a computer. If you are not able to complete them on a computer, you can handwrite the forms. Be sure to print as clearly as possible and always use a pen. Some courts require you to use a pen with blue ink or black ink, so you may want to check with your local clerk of courts on ink requirements before you fill out the forms. Note that just because the Supreme Court is providing these forms, you will be filing them in your local courts, not the Supreme Court. This is not the only form you will need to complete. At the end of this video, you will see a list of forms that you will need to fill out if you are filing a divorce or if you are responding to a divorce complaint. If you complete and file the Supreme Court forms listed, that should be enough to get your divorce case started or respond to a divorce complaint. However, your local court may require you to also complete additional forms. Keep in mind that you might be watching each video more than once, as sometimes you will need to gather additional information that you don't have on hand during the first attempt. This video will cover how to complete two different forms, the form called Complaint for Divorce with Children and the form called Complaint for Divorce Without Children. You should choose the correct form for your situation and follow the instructions in this video to complete the form. In a few different sections, there will be additional information needed to complete the Complaint for Divorce with Children form. I will tell you when we reach those sections. At the top of the first page, you should see the phrase, "In the Court of Common Pleas." On the next line, write in the name of the county where your case has already been filed or will be filed in. If you are filing for divorce, you should file your forms in the county where you live or where your spouse lives. Next, you should fill in the names of the plaintiff and the defendant. This section is directly below the court name and to the left. The person filing for divorce is the plaintiff and the other spouse is the defendant. After the case is filed, the plaintiff and the defendant should be the same on all forms filed in the case. Write your current address on the line below your name. If you do not want your spouse to know your current address due to safety concerns, you should talk to an attorney. Review the information at the beginning of this video on how to find a lawyer or legal clinic. Write your spouse's current address on the line below his or her name. Having your spouse's current address is important for your divorce case. If you do not know your spouse's address, you should do your best to find it by thinking of friends and family who may know it. If you've taken steps to find your spouse's address and you still can't find it, you should talk to a lawyer about what to do next. Review the information at the beginning of this video on how to find a lawyer or legal clinic. Next, directly below the court name and county, and to the right, you can leave the line that starts case number blank. The clerk of court will assign your case a number when you file this form. You can also leave the lines blank beneath the case number for the judge's name and the magistrate's name. The court will assign a judge or magistrate to your case after you file this form. For question 1 on the first page, you don't have to write anything, but when you sign the form, you're telling the court that you have lived in Ohio for the last 6 months. You must live in Ohio for at least 6 consecutive months before you file for a divorce. If you have questions about whether or not you have lived in Ohio for the last 6 months, you should talk to an attorney before you file. Review the information at the beginning of this video on how to find a lawyer or legal clinic. For question 2, you should check the first box only if you've lived in the county where you are filing the divorce complaint for at least 90 days before you file. Write in the name of the county where you live and where you are filing the divorce complaint, which should be the same county if you check the first box for question 2. You should check the second box for question 2 only if your spouse lives in the county where you are filing the divorce complaint. Write in the name of the county where your spouse lives and where you're filing the divorce complaint, which should be the same county if you check the second box for question 2. To file your divorce in an Ohio county, one of the 2 statements in question 2 should be true for your situation. For question 3, write the date you and your spouse got married on the first line. Write the name of the city or county and the state where you were married on the second line. Question 4 asks about children you and your spouse have together who were born while you were married or before you were married. You can check multiple boxes. You should check the box next to every statement that applies to you and your spouse. Check the first box if you were not expecting any children from the marriage. That means that you are not pregnant or you do not believe that your spouse is pregnant. Check the second box if you were pregnant or if your spouse is pregnant. You should write in the due date for the baby. Your divorce may be delayed if you or your spouse is pregnant when you file. If you or your spouse is pregnant, you should talk to an attorney before you file. Review the information at the beginning of this video on how to find a lawyer or legal clinic. Check the third box if you and your spouse did not have any living children from your marriage, either born to you or adopted. Check the fourth box if you had children with your spouse while you were married or with your spouse before you were married. Write in the number of children from the marriage on the first line. On the second line, write in the number of children who are emancipated adults and are not disabled. On the third line, write the number of children who are minors or disabled. Write the names of those children and their dates of birth on the lines below the last checkbox in question 4. If you are completing the form for divorce complaint with children, there are 2 more checkboxes at the end of question 4. If you or your spouse have minor children that are from different relationships, list their names and dates of birth here. For question 5, you can check multiple boxes. You should check the box next to every statement that applies to you and your spouse. The statements in question 5 are what people call grounds for divorce. You need to check at least one box. It is a good idea to check as many boxes or grounds as possible. Most plaintiffs filing for divorce check the first box for incompatible. It is also a good idea to check at least one more box besides incompatible. You will need to prove your grounds in court, so choose carefully. If you have questions about which grounds to choose, you should talk to an attorney. Review the information at the beginning of this video on how to find a lawyer or legal clinic. For question 6, you do not need to check any box or write anything here. The court assumes that you and your spouse own some type of property. In the last section of the form, you can ask the court to order certain things. Check the boxes for the different orders you want the court to make. Check the first box if you want your husband or wife to pay you spousal support. The next set of choices are only on the Divorce with Children complaint form. Check the box if you want to be named the residential parent and legal custodian of any of your children. List the children's names. Check the next box if you want your spouse to be named the residential parent and legal custodian of any of your children. List the children's names. Check the next box if you want the parent who is not the residential parent to have specific parenting time with the children. This means visitation time. Check the next box if you and your spouse want shared parenting for any of your children at issue. List the children you want to have shared parenting for. If you are not sure what shared parenting means, you should talk to an attorney. Check the next box if you want your spouse to pay child and medical support. This is the end of the section of boxes that are only on the Divorce Complaint with Children form. The next boxes are on both divorce complaint forms. Check the box if you want to change your current last name to a last name that you had before you were married. Write in the last name you would like to change to on the line provided. Check the next box if you want the court to order your spouse to pay for your attorney's fees. Check the next box if you want the court to require your spouse to pay for court costs or what the court will charge at the end of the case. Check the last box if there is some other order you want the court to make. You should write in what you want the court to order. Remember that you are asking the court to make an order in the final divorce decree. If you want the court to make a temporary order while your divorce case is pending, you should use a different form called a motion for temporary orders. At the end of the form, there is a line for your signature. Write in your phone number under your signature. Again, if you do not want your spouse to have any information about you, like your phone number, you should talk to an attorney. You have reached the end of this video. Remember that if you still have questions about how to fill out the forms for your specific situation, you should talk to a lawyer. If you need a lawyer or specific advice about your case, you have several options. If you are low income, you can contact your local legal aid program. If you need information about which legal aid covers your community, call the following number. Many communities also have pro bono clinics where low-income people can talk to a volunteer lawyer. Your local legal aid program will have a list of clinics near you. Finally, if you can afford a lawyer, you should reach out to your local bar association for a lawyer referral. Remember that this is not the only form you will need. Here is a list of the forms you will need if you are filing a divorce or if you are defending or responding to a divorce. If you complete your forms and wait a period of time before you file the forms, it is your responsibility to check the Supreme Court website to make sure that there were no changes to the forms since you first completed them.